Hello everyone, we're back again with another video. I wanted to talk to you guys about something that has been really bothering me for quite a long time. And it's something that I actually had difficulty articulating. I really did for quite a while, but as I was editing a video regarding the concept, oftentimes what happens, it happened this time, and this is not the first time that it's happened. I have these problems that I have to solve in my brain, and I have to get it out on paper, and then I'm able to actually articulate it with my words later on in a video. And this was regarding what I consider the CICO, C-I-C-O, calories in, calories out, cope. There's a lot of coping that happens in the space, and by the space, I mean the fitness and health space, broadly speaking. People like Layne Norton are the first people. He's actually the first person that comes to my mind whenever this stuff is thought of in my brain. There's a massive cope happening within the CICO crowd, the calories in, calories out crowd, once again. And it's been happening for a long time. The CICO crowd originally posited that the less you eat and the more you move, the more weight you will lose. And consequently, the better your body composition will be optimized, with the implicit assumption that those two things are necessarily at all times equivalent, which is in and of itself a fallacy in the first place. But anyway, the supporting reasons behind this were due to the dictates of the first law of thermodynamics, which is actually still incessantly referenced in order to support this claim. It is said that we as humans are thermodynamic systems, and therefore the first law of thermodynamics applies to us, failing to question if the isolation of such a law is sufficient to predicting body composition. Hint, hint. And therefore, the more calories we consume, the more calories we store. Calories being used here because, of course, that's the form of energy that is referenced in such a law. Now, there are many problems with this philosophy, many of them, much of which I've written about extensively before, such as hormonal influences, inflammatory influences, the fact that we cannot directly measure calories released from the body, the fact that calories have no mass in the first place and therefore cannot affect the mass balance of the body in any direction, up or down, the fact that you cannot directly measure calories that a food will release when combusted in a bomb calorimeter either. That's an estimation. The fact that you cannot account for how many calories will be used in the first place or excreted, such as protein and fiber, etc., etc. Now, at first, the CICO crowd actually denied these claims, simply on the basis of the existence of the first law of thermodynamics, which they patently do not understand. Since it is a law of physics, then it must mean that the model is unassailable, despite the fact that laws are contextual, existing within a convoluted nexus of other laws, working in tandem with each other in a complicated universe, and are not applicable to every phenomenon or system. However, once it became apparent to this crowd that these factors do, in fact, play a role, much to their chagrin, and therefore render this model completely fallacious, instead of this crowd admitting to this, accepting this reality, and changing their stances on nutrition and lifestyle, they did something different. Layne Norton recently released a video criticizing Mark Sisson, and by recently I mean a long time ago, because I talk about recently as in the recent videos that I've released, but I don't release that many. I'm starting to change that though. Mark Sisson in this video said that CICO or CICO was completely nonsensical, and the practical application of the model did not take into account types of food, the different effects of those foods on the body, types of exercise, etc., as we've covered. However, Layne's critique of this argument became not about refuting these claims, but agreeing with them, stating them as being correct, and therefore stating that Mark was correct, with the caveat that, in effect, he was not correct in the way he thinks he was. Now, this is a typical prideful tactic. Make an argument, claim that it's irrefutable, and then, when it is refuted with unassailable factual evidence, claim that your argument encompassed and considered those rebuttals the entire time, and therefore the person rebutting is still intellectually inferior, especially since they failed to consider something so obvious. Of course my argument considered that. And, more importantly, you are still intellectually superior. In other words, once again, yes, you're correct, but not in the way you think you are. This is precisely what was done here in order to preserve the massive ego of Layne Norton by Layne Norton. Layne said all of these factors, hormonal balance, inflammation status, the amount of food not utilized but excreted, etc., are all accounted for in the calories in, calories out model, because anything not utilized by the body is characterized as calories out, and anything the body does utilize is characterized as calories in. So in other words, they've and not he's, because Layne reliably represents the narrative that the majority of the CICO crowd accepts as being true, perverted the very implications and purported practical applications of the CICO model while maintaining the name of it, in order to make it appear as if their philosophy has still not been refuted, when in fact it has been. It has now just been altered in order to parallel the truth. For example, if I had said to Layne that lower insulin levels leads to an uncoupling of mitochondria within fat cells, and therefore contributes to more mass, or in effect food, being used to create the same amount of energy, and therefore contributes to more caloric release, and further contributes to less fat storage propensity, therefore implying that insulin has a role to play in body composition, refuting the application of the CICO model, Lane would simply say, now that he's been proven wrong, that the variable that was affected was the amount of calories released, which contributes to calories out, and therefore the model is still correct. If I then said that fiber, which contributes to the caloric value on food labels, is not utilized by the body and is excreted, which therefore also interferes with the application of the CICO model, then he would say that the CICO model actually does account for that, because the fiber excretion is represented by calories out as well, despite the fact that you cannot mathematically and practically account for these variables in the first place, due to the sheer number of variables that there are, and the fact that we do not even have the technology to measure any of them. The entire purpose of a model is to be able to use it in practice. Given that this, now perverted, as we've covered, model cannot be used, it is no longer a model, but a vapid and unsophisticated abstract theory with the intended purpose of accounting for body composition, and quite frankly, an already disproven one, as calories themselves cannot be consumed and also cannot affect the mass balance of the human body, given that they have no mass to begin with. Even if mass and energy are interconvertible on a mathematical basis, in practice they are still different units and therefore should be treated as inequivalent. In other words, this entire argument is a pusillanimous cope in order to attempt to save face and to attempt to preserve the integrity of the CICO model, as well as, most importantly, the fragile egos of meathead fitness and nutrition influencers like Lane Norton online. Own up to your mistakes and admit to being incorrect. That's what I have to say to you guys. Lane Norton, all these other fitness influencers. It's ridiculous. This needs to stop. It is not calories in, calories out, okay? Instead of trying to maintain the integrity of the model by pretending that you were right all along, how about you admit to being wrong? Because you were wrong. That's what I have to say. So I'm really sick and tired of this nonsensical garbage, okay? It really encourages eating disorder mentalities, anorexia, bulimia. So anyway, I'll see you guys in the next one when we react to someone else that probably says calories in, calories out. Maybe even Lane Norton again. Hopefully not, actually, but who knows? Stay tuned. See you then.